greetings, greetings, greetings. Peace, peace, peace. Y'all get on in here. Got a great discussion. Man. Oh, I love these designs. Ooh, something said I keep that one. No. Okay, greetings, greetings, greetings. Wow, like, give honor to source, the creator, you know, clap it up for yourselves wherever you are on your journey. This is an interesting yet valuable conversation that I'm going to be discussing. One thing about me is like sometimes I don't even know how to. It's not that I don't know how, but when I say the authenticity of these videos, it's like to even go into some of them has a lot to do with many different topics that I'll speak about, but it all somehow, some way I connect it, you know, in a way of like, you know, for one, I'm just throw topics out there that I'm probably going to cover and discuss is, I want to say sibling rivalry, but it's not really like a rivalry, but toxic siblings and family members, like, and then also connecting to that, like when you're transitioning or grieving from relationships that you have with people, partners, friends, and so forth, and you're like walking into this new reality, timeline, new life, new experiences, and you're having to go through so much transformation emotionally. Like, you know, like I'm just gonna jump right into it, like just discussing things like one thing that really highlighted like where I'm at now. I'm gonna multitask when I do this, like highlighting where I'm at now when it comes to taking on a whole nother different narrative and or responsibility. I'm a firm believer, I don't know what verse it is, to whom is given. Actually, I can look on the computer. To whom is given, much is required. Okay, let's see with that. Because I like to quote certain things because it resonate. Luke 12:48. So, look, I like to read a lot of stuff, so forth. But anywho, this verse, like, is just going to tie into everything I'm talking about. To whom is given, much is required. It says, it mentions that it is a phase that means that much is required from one individual towards others and not to oneself. That's interesting. Towards others and not to oneself. Okay. Now, I can pick that apart, but okay. Let me see. Unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be required, and to whom that have committed much of him. Okay. So, and it's interesting, I might title this video that, but it just goes into like, me talking about that has a lot to do with what a lot of us currently can be at, or just even myself. I speak on my journey. To whom is given, much is required. Now, when it comes down to coming into a newness or a new beginning in your life, in our lives, this can really highlight the fact of when we're really grieving, going through the transition or transitional phase of like trying to come into something new. And this is asking. You know, there's a requirement, I think I spoke about before, like it's required of us to be a version of ourselves that uncomfortably, like we've been in a place where we become comfortable, but now it's asking us to rise into another place mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, to where it's required of us to maybe this time set boundaries. And that's one thing I've learned. I've been reconnecting or had to reconnect with my elder sister. I'm just using like these as like things right now that's happening. And a lot of just discussions has a lot to do with, just toxic. Not saying this is what everything, but just toxic family environments, things that just don't resonate with you no more. And even the fact of like people wanting you to like, sometimes I know people want you to listen, and I get it. There comes a moment I know presently where I'm at is that how much that I am learning to protect my inner child, protecting my innocence, the things that I felt like I was deprived from when I was younger. And what really has affected me a lot right now is how much I realize, because I know I use the term sibling rivalry right now, but I feel like there's a big theme in the air right now. And it could be with the Western astrology, we're in Gemini season. I feel like there's a connection with Gemini being like very childlike, which reminds me of the inner child, and things that remind us of our childhood, and that being connected to our siblings. So, I had, biologically my mom, two sisters. So me now, having a lot of these discussions and just literally hearing my eldest sister, we're talking about childhood traumas, and I'm like literally having these conversations with her, and it's like a whole nother aspect of myself now, where not only individually that I've discussed it about what I went through, but also like putting myself in a place of seeing how much my sisters, but most importantly like my eldest sister, talking to her how much she has been affected, like, because I don't know if I went into depths on other videos about how it looks completely different from a man's perspective, or a little boy growing into a man, than an experience with a little girl growing into a woman or into her womanhood. And that relationships, like I was telling my partner, like my relationship with my daughter is, with our princess, is completely different than what you see with, you and her. Because naturally, again, women, it's not that we're not all logical, practical, or, emotional, because when we're talking about feminine, masculine principles or energies and things that connects those aspects of who we are, her experience with her naturally is going to come from a more emotional place. My experiences is not to say that it's not emotion there to the depths, but I recognize how a lot of my interactions with my princess highlights the fact, again, what I've spoken about, my own abandonment, emotionally, mentally, and physically, and how that looks differently from me now being into my adulthood. But again, it still highlights the fact of the innocence, the child, like her reflecting back to me those very depths of the feminine energy, which is like our children, our kids being like a manifestation or creation of those deepest things that reflect back, from a man, my princess being like a feminine version of myself in a way, like more so like energetically or in a physical sense. Not to say she doesn't, well, she has her own individual journey and path, but what she reflects back to me has a lot to do with those things that pertain mostly to the feminine principles, the things that were hidden, things that highlight within myself. And so now I'm connecting a lot of dots when it comes to that bridge being from my mom to my princess, meeting her, meeting my Aaliyah's mom, so forth. So I feel like there's so much related to so many things that we overlooked. Like we wanted to overlook so much to where it's like we really can't hide anymore. And that's why I'm telling myself, it's like I'm not in a place of hiding from myself or lying to myself anymore. And, you know, and that's going back to, the verse that I mentioned earlier, like, to whom is given, much is required. And I feel like with that, it's like if we're giving something that the Creator feel, even when we feel that we're not worthy or feel that, worthy of it, can we be able to see beyond the fact of that, the responsibility it takes or the responsibility and courage within the gift or whatever it is that we've been given. And that goes back to, again, childhood. Some of us feeling like, we talk about generational curses, or even feeling like the curse itself because of having a mother and a father that maybe did not want us or had us in, it may seem like out of some type of inconvenience in a way, or just we felt like burdens. And so these discussions that I've had with my sister here lately, my eldest sister, is that again, our experiences are completely different when you're interacting with a caregiver, because again, there were things that I saw that they took on this narrative that I was being favored because of me being the boy. But I expressed to people, and I've expressed before, a lot of that has a lot to do with the woundings, which a lot of us wasn't aware of, the woundings of the mothers that we have, endured so much pain or so much, these childhood traumas from, and from their own internal battles. So this is why I talked about before, like this sibling rivalry, where I felt all alone, where your relationships with your siblings aren't the best because sometimes you feel there's a lot of favoritism towards this child just because this may be the youngest, or the mother may show this child more nurturing or certain things. And a lot of that, what we don't talk about, has a lot to do with like a lot of narcissism, control, or even from my own experience, seeing my sisters go through a lot of things now, where I realize a lot of emotional traumas or a lot of emotional abuse, how my mother spoke to them. And then how that now me and my elder sister speaking about these traumas, it's fucking challenging, man. Like, it's really, like, the more I realize I face within myself, it really brings a lot of self-awareness around the sisters or just the people who are affected by these very people who, weren't aware or not care to really go get therapy or go get some type of services or even know about their own internal battle, or just so careless about their actions and not realizing how much that it would affect a lot of us right now. And, having this talk with my elder sister, telling her, like, we're not perfect. Like, I got to remind her, because I'm on my journey. It's like naturally I've always in my family been looked at like someone, well, I saw myself as this, but from my experience, I would see people like, when I used to go places or travel somewhere, like my sisters would call me as if like I was a savior for my mother. But in reality, being that in that circumstances, even though we grew up around a lot of cousins and stuff, I was still looked at as a father figure in a way. And that was a lot of due to the fact that I had to grow up early. I had to be more hyper masculine than most men. So I was responsible early to where, again, through that process of being, and that's only because of my own experiencing abandonment physically, emotionally, or being forced into places where I had to, step up in places where it wasn't in the physical sense of like just finances. For me as a man, it was being scapegoated through, or in a way of like being that emotional support for everybody but myself. So how my wound showed up as a man, I was being the emotional support for everybody. Every time somebody called, I would answer. Every time, something's going on with my mom, everybody called me. And so for me, it like eventually I realized coming to a lot of this awareness, it took a toll to where I became burnt out. And I was doing this with a lot of some elder women and even in relationships. So a lot of these patterns, as I became more aware of my own emotional abandonment and physical and so forth, a lot of these fears surface around these things. A lot of my own shadows, a lot of subconscious things came up to where, again, I could not escape the experiences with what I endured as a child. So these conversations that I'm having with my sisters, I'm realizing like, wow, like my eldest sister, like I'm sitting here speaking to her like she has kids, but her circumstances with the father of her child, I had to naturally, being that, and I'm gonna break this down like tic-tac, but show you how it's all connected when it comes to a wounded woman. If you haven't heard before, like the thing was so vital about the matriarchal and patriarchal, they both are of importance. Because again, the matriarchal being the grandmother, great grandmother, grandma, mama, all those maternity figures in a way, women. So being that they're the first teachers, my mother was the first teacher in a way to my sisters. So if we reflect on what I saw in my childhood and then they saw, then I'm like, whoa, like it's hitting me now because I have a nephew that is displaying certain behaviors similarly to what I experienced. And I can recognize it as a lot of similar things that he has experienced when it comes to emotional abandonment, physical, and mental, because of the patterns, again, that my sister, elder sister learned, picked up on, and so forth. So they never really had an outlet to navigate their emotions or a safe place. That being not only with my mom, but the other toxic women, the other wounded women when it came to certain aunts that would gossip, certain secrets, a lot of things when it came to the family dynamic that were really unhealthy. So she developed these patterns. You're talking about, again, being around a woman who verbally abused their daughters and son, physically and so forth. The awareness around this is to speak about how it affects women completely different than it does men. I would say, like, on a deeper emotional level, where everything is created and where we begin, it can really have a lot of a deeper effect on women to where you're talking about naturally, I feel, because how we as men look at things logically. But it doesn't mean that we're not affected emotionally. It's just when I look at the depths of things beginning with the matriarchal, and I'm sitting here like, whoa, I can connect this to even someone I know presently that's going through something with their mother. And then I'm seeing this pattern similarly, even though it doesn't look the same, but the energy presents the same way, like the wounded mother, the wounds around the matriarchal. And so, and a lot of it highlights a lot to do with emotional abandonment, verbal abuse, a lot of these things that are related to distortion. And what I feel like is, again, surfacing has a lot to do with these inauthentic foundations of like women who never really got to voice or feel safe or feel embraced. So the patterns that I saw with my elder sister and my younger sisters, like, again, we was in an environment where it could seem like a mother hated you or disliked you or even envy or was jealous of your relationships. And a lot of us probably can relate to that when you're talking about whether you're in you're trying to create a healthy environment. And that goes into like even when you're transitioning, growing, elevating, wanting to evolve in the environment of the toxicity of the unhealthy patterns, the behavior patterns, when you're trying to break generational curses, but you have these women who have had so much of a profound effect on your life mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and it plays out into your physical reality to where it's like, how do you know how to get out of it? And I feel like that's the most challenging things when it really comes to our women. And you know, even though like certain sisters that I know, women or whatever, they may not ever say it. A lot of them, their battle is with so much of how to detach or let go from that matriarchal figure. And the reason being, I feel, from my perspective, has a lot to do with, again, you develop so much of your emotions, your behavior patterns from, you know, that was your source at a time. You know, that's where you rely, you know, your resources stem from. So you're talking about a lot of women now, and I'm seeing my sisters, you know, or seeing women that I know have so much of these repetitive or behavior patterns that they're either unaware of or have developed through that matriarchal figure, through a grandmother, through somebody, just because here you are trying to change a narrative or wanting to do things differently with your child, wanting them, you know, just anything. And sometimes that matriarchal figure, that somebody has a survival mentality or going through something spiritually. And you know, I've seen so much where like having to face women who will emotionally abuse their child so much, even to adulthood, through certain things, so to naturally play the victim, you know, to keep them around, to keep them bound to them in some way. Not to mention on the spiritual aspect, women that do things such as that. And because it all is connected in a way. When you look at the emotions, you're talking about also something that's internal, the spiritual aspect of all of it. And so again, when I look at and hear, it's like my elder sisters in a cry, I can connect it to so many women that I know, and all women, because this is the oneness about all of it. It's like if I realize, like, when I look at the dynamics and the pieces, when I saw how my nephew came, because he's the eldest out of her two kids, and just seeing how she was treated during her pregnancy, there was no emotional support. You know, there was not a lot of genuine support. Then, even when he arrived, and this is not an attack on my elder sister, this is not an attack on anyone, I naturally gravitated towards my nephew because it immediately reminded me of my own, like, connection again as a child. And again, I jumped into this hyper masculine role because, as you know, just being like there as a father, to where his father isn't there, who wasn't there. And I believe he has other kids, but you know, just seeing that dynamic or dialogue play out to where this person doesn't see the importance of how a man and a woman both need, you know, have some, you know, create some type of balance for themselves and that child. And I'm recognizing the pattern of seeing so much of myself in my nephew, seeing so much of him coming and experiencing the same energetic aspect of, like, again, going back to how karma is passed through the womb. So the things that, because my sister is the eldest, so the things that, whatever my mom went through, whatever, how, you know, how karma comes through and passed through energetically, and we're talking about generational things that we inherited. So to see that, and then whatever her experience is, and how, you know, a lot of us don't even know how we were really genuinely supported, or emotionally, mentally, and so forth. You know, if we even recollect the memory when we were in the womb until like 3, until we were 7, 8, or 9. And so my eldest sister, she's only, let me see, we're like a year, I think it'd be like at least a year and a few months apart. So a lot of people don't realize that time span, a lot of our mothers haven't really like had a space to breathe, a moment to feel safe, not knowing whatever their environment, not ever knowing whatever their circumstances was, to even be moving around, to even have a place of security, financially, so forth. Not only just that within or outwardly, but also the outwardly part of like resources from the grandmother, the family, and so forth. So a lot of these things we probably didn't realize we dealt with has a lot to do with what we're dealing with now. And like to really sit here on the phone and talking to her about these things, like, bro, our childhood was like, there's some bits and pieces in there, and it's not to paint out that someone was just horrible at their experience, but you cannot overlook the cruel behavior, or now seeing firsthand, this is my eldest sister being a mother. I think she became a mother like around, I want to say it was between 18 and 20. But either way, much younger than when I became a father. But just with that whole circumstance, I was there. And just even, again, the support when it comes to genuine support, the encouragement and so forth. A lot of these new experiences haven't been grand, haven't been really a joyful experience when it comes to a lot of how we've been brought into this world. A lot of us were brought in through pain, through trauma, through traumatic experiences from whatever our mothers and fathers were going through. So now sitting here on the phone, and you want to have these conversations with certain siblings and certain people, but I could sit back and be like, bro, everybody really going through their own thing. Everyone individually is going through their own thing. It gets so deep to where my sister now, like this shit is crazy, bro. It's like for my sister, like my older sister, to tell me how her, like even for someone who don't even know who their father is, or just to have knowledge of that, like again, all three of my, like 3 siblings, all of us have 3 different fathers. And again, I sit back and observe and be like, what is the pattern there? Like why, like what was our mother really doing? Like we really ask ourselves these things. And not realizing like, what did they stay in? What did they endure and so forth? Why didn't it work out with this man? Well, who, And so my elder sister, she's about to be 36. And she's just now, which is, I know she don't say it, but it's embarrassing to really not know who your father is, and then try to, or this, having been told that one man is your father, and then it coming out that it really may not be him. And so it's like, where, now there's this other guy that it's a possibility that it is him, and you can see the similarities there. Not to mention my youngest sister coming to her awareness of like, in like early, like not even in the last 5 or 10 years, I say the last 5 years, 10 years, now really interacting with her father. So a lot of things like can make kids question everything about the foundation of their caregivers. And, to hear my sister say, like, I presented this to mama and she laughed like it was a joke, when it really comes to a fact of there's so many, especially when it comes down to a little girl and their father. You got people that don't have their father. You got, due to, you know, fate or whatever experiences young, due to like imprisonment, numerous of things. People father who has got shot, kid murdered, a lot of things. And to see people like to hear my mother like laugh and play about that, and deep down I know it really hurts. Like it hurts me in a way, or I have a sense of compassion for my sister, because people at this age, and there's a lot of people that go through similar stories like this, and it really damages a lot of their relationships, and to where a lot of our caregivers or people really feel like just because they're our mother and father or something like that, that they're obligated to just be in our lives, or don't realize that these wounds that you have inflicted through your narcissistic controlling or manipulation, behavior or patterns, people really feel like we shouldn't heal from that, distance ourselves, walk away, choose to create our own narrative. And so it's like, as I sit back and observe, because I'm in a whole different environment, I've moved away, and I'm able to sit back and like really like popcorn in hand and really look at this whole fucking dysfunctional ass, like, or the dysfunction of the lineage, let's say that. And here it is, my sister, it don't matter age, like this little girl in her crying out, and she's now trying to figure out like the truth to, uncovering the lie and the uncomfortability of accepting the truth of this could be your father, a man that's just now getting out of prison. And the reason I present this thing to you, because it ties into a lot of the little girl within us. You know what I'm saying? Some of us who are trying to regain and be restored with that innocence. And the only way you can be restored is through the destruction of the old version of you, the old aspect of who we built so much of these foundations in reality upon sand, now only to build it now upon stone, to build something now solid. And some of that comes with the fact of a lot of us now coming to the acceptance of building a new tribe or creating something with people that on a soul level, on a deeper level, and not with immediate family. It's not to say some of them aren't on that level, but again, from a place of authenticity, not a place of foundations that we know that it's not going to be sustainable or that's not valuable. So for me to be able to look at this now and realize like, whoa, like to see my elder sister go through that and have these conversations, and just seeing how even in something, when you're dealing with siblings and something like that, like I know people who don't get along with their siblings, and sometimes we think it's us, but in reality, a lot of it has to do with what we were brought up in. Because again, like I said, it looks different from her perspective than my perspective. Because again, that rivalry, that sibling rivalry can come in the fact of them believing that I was getting favoritism, but in reality, I was being smothered by a woman who vicariously tried to live out her her fears, whether it's abandonment, emotionally, try to basically scapegoat her son due to her father wounds. So she vicariously tried to live out that idea of a man. And you see this so much. It's like this idea of a man that, it's, how could I word this? It's like the idea of a man that, a son that will never leave her or desert her in any way. But in reality, I got the opposite of that. I was the one that was abandoned emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. So now having to face these mother wounds and heal through these things, it allows me to see from a perspective of also that mother wound in the women that I know, and see how it has affected not just me, but my sisters, my other cousins, in the bigger picture of the lineage. of seeing how we have been surrounded by these wounded women who have carried so much spiritual warfare when it comes to the envy, the shadows, the fears of all these things that they've dealt with inside. And again, seeing that energy play out and then still play out karmically through the women that you know. Even though they're younger, they're still a part of the matriarchal, what makes up the matriarch. And it's, again, no different than me. It's like I played out similar behaviors to the men that I grew up around. I played out certain things, men that at a point that I admired or what I assumed that was inspiring. Didn't realize how much that had a ripple or would have a ripple effect on the women closest to me, and also in my relationships and so forth, and even moving forward. So like just seeing how certain things that through, now my elder sister being like finna be 36 next month, it's like, here we are, like, what the fuck? Like, bro, I thought life is supposed to be great, and it is, it's beautiful. But just the fact of like now, like realizing like, yo, didn't nobody tell us about, childhood traumas? Didn't nobody tell us about stuff like this that we got to face right now? Didn't nobody tell us that we had to, that this, it was going to be like this? Didn't nobody tell us life was going to be lifing right now? And so it's like, as much as we were projected or told that, focus on your success, focus on this and focus on that. And in reality, it's like, that was so far from the truth of even focusing on our well-being, emotionally, mentally. So I've seen the women now, I'm seeing it like, as I do the healing, as I face certain things, I'm seeing it also the ripple effect that it has had on the ones closest to me. And then even seeing it with the younger ones, like my little cousins. And it's like I'm able to put myself in people's positions. Even though my story may not look the same, I'm just seeing how the energy like is playing out, seeing how certain things, and it's like you want to have, in reality, like you want to have this healthy dialogue. You want to have this healthy dialogue with people that you know that you grew up with and so forth. But this person over here might believe in, like I told myself, if I sit here and know that I've dealt with physical abuse, and my belief system is not about whooping a child, spanking them, just because I feel like that's okay and discipline. Like, no, I seen that happen to me. I seen that happen to my sisters and so forth. To where it's like, there were a moment where my mom was so angry or, certain things. I seen people embrace anger naturally to where I'm learning now at 30-something to honor my emotions and to discipline, the self-discipline and self-control of that used to being so impulsive and growing up in environments like that. But it has looked completely different when I see how people that I know who discipline their child by if they talk back. Like I've seen it look similarly to what my mom did, or women that I knew in my family, like they would continue this traumatic experience or this traumatic loop of believing this is what they should do to their child just for them to act right or to behave properly, and not see the psychological like warfare or just the abuse in the fact of even intentionally harming someone, because you cannot control your own fucking emotions. And so again, I've seen this pattern of impulsiveness to where, again, how I show up and represent the patriarchal, I got to be the one to change that. And that's the thing with, I always tell you about generational curse breaking. And then it's not that I don't love my siblings or certain people that I've connected with or previously. It's just certain things that just don't resonate. If I'm sitting here trying to create a world around harmony, peace, and prosperity and so forth, your perspective may look different on that. Somebody's perspective may be solely focused on the value of their value being in money, in material things. but not peace. So for me, I gotta pay attention and be aware that, well, if that's what they believe their foundation or how they're going to create their world, to each his own, but that doesn't correlate whatever, what I want to build and what it is that, I want to create for, business, partnership, and so forth, and the people that I'm connected to. So again, I've seen how it has affected women differently, and I feel like that's where you see all this discrepancy or this versus thing and people against each other. Y'all got to realize, like, women are going to see things completely different than men. We naturally see things completely different. I mean, we experience this on a daily. If you know women, if you know a mom or anybody, like, that's gonna, I've seen the intensity behind women when it really comes to things like so much emotion behind it, like so much of their pain, their internal pain behind lashing out at the child by how they speak to them. Me conversing with my sister, it's like you can hear a child crying out. And this is what a lot of us, you can hear people crying out and they're wanting so much of how it is to navigate through it. They don't know how. So it's different when, there's more of a natural connection, I feel, with a mother and her daughter. And what makes that really significant is that there's a deeper emotional aspect of that. That little girl is, in a way, like, reflecting back to that mother all her deepest insecurities. And then at the same time, that child is absorbing all the things that the mother is displaying, saying, or even unconsciously, subconsciously, not even saying or feeling. So, a lot of things that we thought were okay, we don't even see, like, the dysfunction in it. And then how, even when I grew up around certain people, that impulsiveness, is like, some of us would, like, fight each other, because we thought that was a way of survival or protecting ourselves, not realizing how much that will affect your relationships moving forward. And so, childhoods where you grew up in environments where you had to defend yourself, protect yourself. A lot of girls growing up in environments where their mother didn't teach them the discipline of, like, really valuing who they are inside, emotionally, mentally, physically. The importance of their sensuality, their sexuality, all these things. And then here they are, they get pregnant, and one of the caregiver's greatest fear, but in reality there was no support there to prepare them for things as such. And you see this displayed so much in the community with the young, with the youth, and so forth. It's because no one wants to hold not only ourselves accountable, but there is no one around us, there has been no people around us holding us accountable. And that's why I feel like it's very important, because a lot of us now are facing things within ourselves to where we're just now being held accountable because, this is how things are playing out. And the importance of having someone like that, walking in integrity, is that we have to realize that our mother, or a lot of these people, haven't had anybody to hold them accountable. They have been given certain things to just keep that narrative of dysfunction going, of that distortion going. Fed things through the media, that they're never better or can be better than their circumstances, or never outgrow their circumstances. And so you see this jealousy, this envy or whatever it is, these things between the mother and daughter thing. Like, I saw that. I was a young boy seeing that young. I saw the deep pain, jealousy, like, just cruel behavior with the dynamic of my mother and sisters that people never talk about. The fact of, like, I'm talking about the deepest insecurities and when you're talking about being around people who caregivers or women that are manipulative and narcissistic, it's like they literally, you will see people prey on the woundings of, using things like, I'm your mother, you should do this. I'm your father, using things like that to say like, oh, well, I'm this person. The obligation to the fact of like, well, just because I'm this, I'm allowed to say this. I'm allowed to do this. And we didn't know what boundaries were. We didn't, we're just now trying to implement it. Some of us with kids, some of us without. And then that really reveals people's deepest insecurities, people's deepest shadows. And it's like, then that determines, now you're in a space or a place mentally, emotionally, when you're trying to protect that inner child again, when you're trying to protect yourself and realize this was the person who enabled this shit. This was the person, this was the foundation, the energetic foundation that created, whether it be, however years, whatever age you are, or years alone, that has kept this narrative going until we came to that self-realization, like, wow, hold on. The only way, like, if I don't step up, if I don't speak up, if I don't honor who I am, then how could the healing really begin? And that's where a lot of it starts, where we realize like the healing journey starts there, is when we start to really be honest with ourselves and accept the fact of like, yo, I've been lying to myself. And, you're talking about completely starting over, the world as you knew it, the relationships as you knew it, the environments, the society, everything. That's where you realize, like, in the reality, some may say, like, that's the biggest lie. The biggest lie ever told was you lying to yourself. You not being honest with yourself. You're not having a foundation of like authenticity, and even continuing masking yourself through the idea like this is just what life is supposed to be. And in reality, no, it's not. What you've been playing out, or what we've been playing out, has a lot to do with what we inherited through our lineage, what we inherited through our experiences with our mothers and fathers or whomever else around us. And so as we remove ourselves, those that have the courage, because I told my partner, I said, some people don't make it out. Some people crash out. Some people mentally don't get out of it. Why they're having these suicidal thoughts, a lot of traumatic things, a lot of things that have been passing through their lineage that they knew nothing about. Sometimes they don't have the resources or the help or whatever it is, the support through it. And some of them are left with, well, what am I supposed to do? And this is why I come and speak about this thing, because it is the reality. Because I be wanting to speak to y'all about shit that's relatable. Like I'm in a place where it's like, I still got to focus on what I'm creating, because do I look at the fact of like, I told you, I've spoken about this, like my mother wound is completely different than my sister's. So individually, to someone, it may look selfish that, oh, well, if you have this, why don't you do this and help? It's not about that. Some of us that know that have been on this journey, that that once you come to this awareness that you are no one's savior, and that was the deepest thing for me. My wounding was one of my wounds had a lot to do with, like my mother wounds had a lot to do with trying to save not only her emotionally and being in that hyper masculine role of trying to protect her, but that affected me for so many years of trying to save, being used by women, using women, or even being in a place where I developed these behavior patterns where I could save women from their destruction, from their hell, from whatever it is that they're experiencing. But now that I've got to this awareness, like, whoa, I need to face my own emotions first. I need to take care of my well-being first, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, so forth, all in that. And to get to this place and have gotten to this place, I had to go through a lot of darkness. I had to see the patterns. I had to see the things that I couldn't connect myself or associate myself with, and so forth. And no one knows the depths of that pain. But the awareness around of it all has a lot to do with the fact of like now the newness in the foundations that I'm building upon stone has a lot to do with holding myself accountable first and holding those that are willing to be open to reciprocate and accept, that accountability. And one of the most challenging things is like even with the fact that when it comes to parents or whomever people like that, it's like we feel like we should repair that connection. And that's why I can see sometimes it's like the mindset of where I used to tell my sisters over the years, like, yo, stop calling me about my mom because it's nothing I can do. See, that was me stepping into my power, regaining the strength within myself rather than trying to save her from the circumstances of still dealing with an abusive man, still dealing with substance abuse, still placing herself in these environments without really focusing on herself. So I could not, in reality, the actuality, I cannot save someone from what it is they're experiencing. And the difference now is that as a caregiver, as a father, to whom is given much is required, I'm in a position now not only to, be there for myself, but I'm granted a place or being in a place where now seeing myself and seeing how it ripples to, being a guide for a child. So when it comes to things like that, it's like my mother is not my child. Let's be real here. A lot of us need to accept it. Your caregiver or whomever it is, they're not your children. And that's another toxic thing to where we feel like, when I reflect on my thing, when I reflect on what I've experienced, I cannot say that most of my life my mother was there. And this is a harsh reality for a lot of people. Because it's not that someday it may not be called to be of support in some way, but the actuality of knowing that if a person's still repeating the same pattern, still not wanting to evolve or change their behavior, there is a deep acceptance where I had to grieve through and accept the fact that like this person may not ever change, and I'm okay with that. Grieve over, I've spoken about it before, grieve over the fact of like the fantasy of the mother that I wish I could have had, or wish I had. And I think that that's where a lot of people get stuck, even with my sisters or just some people. It's like they get so deep into the emotional aspect of they're attached themselves to the circumstances of what people going through. And some people, depending on their mindset, can see, oh, that's selfish that you won't do this. But in reality, I can still see it as being selfless when I still want to be there for myself. Because if I don't take care of me first, then what? That still has a ripple effect on the people. Whether they are in their emotions, whether they feel like they're in denial about certain things, that still doesn't, like, I don't have to let that affect me in a way to where it like deters me from my path. You see, that's where the responsibility, or even to whom is given much is required. It's like, when are we going to accept that a lot of our caregivers are just bridge? Yeah, they were a bridge karmically, just like we are a bridge where we're clearing things karmically for our kids. And those things energetically again are passed through the lineage. So there's a responsibility in bringing forth more peace, prosperity, and wealth in different ways. Really looking at it from an internal space, or looking at things from a more, whether you want to be a minimalism or whether you want to, looking at it from a whole different trajectory, or aspect of how you don't got to do what mom and dad told you to do because of these standards. And so, I told myself I don't have to repair that. Now I'm in the driver's seat this time. I don't have to repair that. Because, see, after so many years of trauma, so many things and so forth, you get tired emotionally, mentally, spiritually, to where it's like, am I going to keep neglecting myself to try to prioritize someone else's well-being? Fuck no. No. Respectfully. No. I would not be here today in the health that I'm in and so forth, and still acknowledging, having got through things, healing, and now acknowledging things that I'm still healing through. If I did not learn what it was to be the man that was selected to change this narrative and create a whole other dialogue around what it is to not just be a man, but to acknowledge and take full accountability of his role from up to this moment, from childhood and up to this moment and so forth. And even see the role of others that I cannot just overlook. Because I also got to see my role, but I also have to see the role of others. Trying to keep telling people this is what you should and should not do. Like, again, my experience is different, but I can see the patterns to where it's like breaking a generational change where I cannot be a savior for no one else. I can only show up now, trying to show up as the best version of me. And, seeing those toxic traits or seeing those things play out, even with certain family members, because some of those people will try to, the narcissist or the person in the family that to be the emotion manipulator, because some of us have those eyes to see, because the more things we become aware of, we are able to recognize these characters. Hey, I see you. Hey, I see you. So I'm not going to sit back and be like, I'm going to keep being naive. No. I specifically had to tell my sister, I said, look, some people grow older and some people grow wiser. Now, when it comes to something like that, you don't become wiser by continuing doing the same thing as not learning. The wisdom comes in not just knowing first, like, okay, I know what this person did. The wisdom comes in when you apply it and you do something completely out of the norm that doesn't, looks the same as what you knew. Knowing in a way, again, this is my perception, it's like that internal knowingness and accepting this. Okay, so now my approach has to be different. Then that's going to highlight what really is for me or not. So it's like really taking that, response, like self-discipline, like that it takes a lot when you're talking about self-improvement, self-empowerment, having to reestablish that as a little boy into adulthood right now, evolving. And so if I know where I'm at and I look at my dynamic and where I'm at presently, I have to be very much aware that this person is not like in my inner circle or going where I'm going. So why would I know this, and then the simple fact of like, I have to be very much aware that, okay, this is a liability. This is an asset. And that's the awareness of seeing yourself as an asset and recognizing those who, if you're trying to build something, you're creating something upon stone. This person, the things that their core value reflects has nothing to do with what you're creating and building upon. I could not ignore that when I looked at certain people's behaviors and how they move. I don't care. I remove the title of mother, father, sister, brother, anything. I remove those titles. Don't matter in business and so forth. That's the deep awareness when it comes to me knowing my self-worth. A lot of things I've seen my elder sister and a lot of people battle with is that a lot of us went through so much of traumatic experience to where we did not know our self-worth. We were in environments with women and men that did not know their value, where their value lied in, seeking approval, or, money, a lot of things that don't reflect the world that we're creating now. It's not to say that when it comes to material things or certain things that people accumulate in their life aren't of importance to them. When we're talking about the worth, you're talking about how a lot of little girls who have grown up, when you see right now, like, it doesn't shock me when you see a lot of these entertainers, this energy being projected out. And imagine the effect that it will have on these little girls. And if their mother are not consciously aware, or a father's not there presently, not making them aware, like, this isn't healthy, this isn't okay, what do you think is going to happen? Because we eat with our ears and our eyes. So a lot of things, again, seeing people that I know, like firsthand, a lot of things that they're displaying, or now being faced with a lot of their repressed emotions, because I know that's what my sister is experiencing. But again, this goes back to also that savior mentality they have been in. I was already through the years letting go of this. When I say, hey, I was already assessing boundaries. Stop telling me about this. I don't want to hear about this drama, so forth. So, a lot of things where that was me approaching it to where it's like, look, there's nothing I can do. And that's, again, me focusing more on my well-being instead of trying to be attached to the idea that I can save this person. I can save her from her experience. I can save this. And you got to do the same. People are going to feel a way. They're going to say something. When you're willing to evolve, change, or shift, not only internally and externally, it's like a tower or whatever it is you want to call it. Like, things will be shaken up to you realize, like, wow, that rejection was for my protection. Or, even accepting the fact that nothing of what we've been doing was perfect. A lot of us are now emerging, even myself, learning to now emerge from the fucking pain that I've experienced, and still blossoming and still unraveling things and finding out this and seeing people as I internally face things, seeing it play out through other scenarios, even though it may not be me in that position or in that place. I can see the energy, or I can see the things that are playing out, and I'm like, whoa. Then my ego can be like, okay, am I going to judge them? Am I going to act like I'm higher than them? Or am I going to come from a place of intention, like love and authenticity, and be like, look, like, accountability is, or authenticity is like, look, get you together, man. Get you people around you that's not going to play. Because where I'm at, it's like, I'm not going to play about me no more. Respectfully, whether mom and dad is, I'm not going to play about me no more. Because I'm doing what I need to do to protect my inner child. The inner child that's always been there. To the depths of my soul, to protect, to guide and protect that innocent aspect of me. So when you see what's displayed in my artistry and so forth, and these are aspects of myself, fragmentations that I've been, that's being recovered, that's being restored within me. And that happens through levels of facing my own internal battle. Things now I'm realizing, like, these things are being presented, but even through certain partnerships or friendships that I have with people, it's like, I can't even save them from whatever it is that they're experiencing. I cannot save them. And in reality, it's like, look, you're accountable, for you first. We haven't been in environments where, a lot of us know what it is to learn, not all of us, but really a society that teaches us to be self-sufficient, to self-improvement, or, mainly about self, mastering self, or the idea of really learning who you are before you enter this relationship, before you enter this business, before you sign this, before you do any of this. That was not something that was built, that was embedded in us. We all have been.
The library will close in 15 minutes.
Okay.
The public computers will shut down in 5 minutes. Please finish your work, send any remaining print jobs, and prepare to log off. Thank you.
Right on time, right on schedule. But anyway, we didn't grow up in an environment. A lot of these corporations that you see in crumble and all this other shit, it was centered around control, manipulation, preying on our woundings. It's like, I see that now with how my mother was, or just seeing the wounded aspect of how things. I'm gonna tell you how deep this shit go. The foundation that she built upon, and I'm seeing this play out with a lot of people's relatives right now, or even like a lot of people's caregivers, the foundations that they have tried to keep up for so long, by them lying to themselves, by them not being honest and authentic with themselves, are crumbling. And through their fear, through their subconscious fears, whether they're aware of it or not, or even just intentionally knowing that they're being narcissist or controlling, they're still using the same tactics to try to, like, it's like something like that's dark, they're trying to consume something that's of light. Trying to like lure or control them with the same tactics, yo. And that's the thing about mastering the dark and light, or even recognizing, if you want to call them demons, entities, recognizing the shit like, oh, you know what, I see you. And I mean, when I say I see you, it's like, I see you. Aha, like you know the Scooby-Doo shit, like, you know, the mystery and all that, and they find out it was somebody right near them or so forth. You know, stuff like that. It's like, aha. But in reality, it's like a part of you realize, like, okay, now you see that it was this person or whatever it was, the energy, whatever it was, spirit. Now you have to ask yourself, okay, now you got to take what you experienced, and then how are you going to approach it now? How are you going to alchemize it, transmute it? How are you going to now implement this in your game plan, in your strategy? How are you going to approach it? And this is exactly what I'm doing right now. There were moments where I could have given up. There were moments where I could have, again, fallen back into the loop of feeling like I got to, like, right now, matter of fact, of, like, again, seeing, like, literally with my mom, like, I don't be looking for stuff. Like, my sister, she'll check up, and I'll check up on her. She'll tell me certain things that's going on. I'm not even surprised. The reason I'm not surprised with a lot of things, because when I look at the old way of things, and when I look at the foundation the shit was built upon, it's like, why would I try to save those things when I recognize that energy, that spirit of like manipulation, you know, all those things that, again, that was a part of breaking generational curses and chains. Why would I try to save that? No, I'm going to let that be dispersed. And then in that, as I'm facing it, I'm going to realize, like, okay, that energy is playing out through that dynamic. I need not to save that, because that's like trying to take on someone else's karma. That's like trying to take on things and save them from what they need to experience. Exactly what we were saying, like, over a phone call. It's like a lot of us are giving the position, or in this present moment, an opportunity every moment, like, to get up, rise up, to do something completely different. And once you remove all of what you learn and unlearning, like, oh, you think money needs to do this and all this other stuff, and when you realize you are the asset and things that you become aware of, you start to be like, oh my gosh. You'll see how much, like, you were being fooled or fooling yourself. Because we all been there. We all been a fool. And so, again, I can recognize the energy playing out in people that I love or certain things. It's like, even if I wanted to swoop in with a cape and do like this, something would still be called to me to do something else. To where am I going to neglect what I need to do instead of try to, like, and go over there and try to show up for someone else? Like, those days are over. That pattern is done. I'm not going to continue that narrative. And that's what you got to ask yourself. I told my sister, I said, look, once you realize that you are the captain of your own ship, you are the main character in your story. Your kids, mama, dad, everybody are extras in your movie. Meaning that you are the main character. And I was like, even me, I'm an extra in your movie, but you got to start to see yourself as a priority. And then our descendants or kids that are younger, they need to see that. So they know the importance of, wow, I can see someone who knows what it is.
The library will close in 10 minutes. If you need assistance, please see a staff member now.
I need to see someone who walks in their integrity, authenticity, who knows what it is to honor their emotions and so forth. Again, there has not been foundations like this where we have seen women and men who are uplifted or in a position or places, media, so forth, TV, all these things that in any way that shapes a narrative or creates a narrative of around things as such. There's been a false narrative around that when you look at how things were. So again, it's like, you know, just recognizing, I probably will do a part 2 because I gotta go, but just recognizing things like that makes me realize, like, you know, it takes a lot of courage when it comes to this, because again, it's not much I can really say I can savor. I can only exchange when it comes to communication or certain things and being encouraging. Because again, a lot of our mothers, sisters, and so forth, a lot of things were normalized where we'll listen to stuff, gossip about it, and tear the other person down. Well, once I've gotten to this place where I was like, you know what, we all going through something. So my only best, not even just advice, but it's just that you just never know who need encouragement or who need a little sense of empowerment or a little, hey, I see you, it's okay, I value you, I love you, I appreciate you. Because I just knew where it was to be there. So again, to try to now create a world where we're learning now to be more compassionate with ourselves, parts of ourselves that we never had compassion for. There were parts of ourselves, like I'm recognizing to where me seeing those parts of the sister or women in my family, it's like they also had to learn that pattern where they were around women who hated themselves, men who hated themselves, and they were in partnerships, relationships, in a country where it's pushed to, you know, projected on them that like, oh yeah, we don't like you, we hate you, you know, it's so many things that go into that, to where a lot of us is trying to crawl out of that dark place. Like, oh my gosh. And then after that, you're like trying to get a sense of a breath of fresh air, try to relieve yourself. And so it goes much deeper, man. So, you know, a lot of things, there's beautiful things on the horizon because there's a lot of great things coming to the world, to humanity, and so forth. You know, it's a process. And it's a process of elimination. It's a process of clearing out like clutter. But for a lot of you mothers or, you know, sisters that will see this, it's like the reason I try to speak about my own experience because to make it relatable, because I cannot put myself like really in your position. But to both men and women, but I always speak about the women because of so much when it pertains to the matriarchal of how a lot of you are right now trying to break generational curses or facing things in the support a lot of you are looking or seeking isn't there. I've talked to people like that. Like, it's challenging to want to pick up the phone, call your mother, or reach out to this woman, you know, so forth, when in reality or actuality, it's not possible. And then the idea of you even thinking like, will it ever be possible? And they even have that strength to just move on, both men and women. But I'm just saying firsthand from women that I know, it's like to hear them say like, man, like, wow, you want to have a sustainable or, you know, a good relationship with your mother and father. And that's the most challenging things with a lot of us that are, you know, coming, healing, you know, healing,
final selections, and take your materials to the checkout counter.
Healing or just getting through these things because of that. Like that. I can tell you firsthand, I can't just call up my dad and mom and talk about things as such like this. I've just had to really get to a place where I felt safe, secure, and grounded again within myself to even speak about these experiences and these traumas and so forth. Just so now I could finally build a stable relationship within myself and with other people, like trusted relationships, partnerships, you know, things that are secure, you know, so forth, like, genuine things. And it's a process. Just it's baby steps, man. Just be easy, grant yourself grace, and just know that you are loved by Source, by the Creator, by the Most High. You are valuable. I see you, and it's gonna be okay. This too shall pass. Peace and blessings. Shalom.